I never thought the woman I loved would reject me in front of hundreds of people, but Janet did exactly that at our college farewell party. She stood on that stage, microphone in hand, and when I walked up with flowers and a ring, she laughed. Not a nervous laugh, but a cruel, mocking one that echoed through the entire hall. She said I was delusional if I thought someone like me could ever be with someone like her. The crowd erupted in laughter and whispers. My hands trembled as I stood there, frozen, holding those stupid roses that suddenly felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Her friends recorded everything on their phones. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Classmates I barely knew were sharing it, adding laughing emojis and cruel captions. I became the joke of the entire university, the pathetic guy who got publicly humiliated by the girl he loved. That night, I sat alone in my dorm room, staring at the ring I had saved months to buy. It was not expensive, just a simple silver band, but it represented everything I felt for her. I thought about all the times I helped her with assignments, walked her home late at night, brought her coffee during exam weeks. I thought she cared, at least a little. I was wrong. The next morning, I made a decision. I would disappear from her world completely. No explanations, no goodbyes, no second chances. I deleted her number, blocked her on every social media platform, and avoided every place I knew she would be. If she wanted me gone, then I would be gone so thoroughly that it would be like I never existed. I threw myself into my studies and my part-time work with an intensity I did not know I had. Every moment I used to spend thinking about her, I now spent building myself. What I did not know then was that my disappearance would affect her more than my presence ever did. What I did not realize was that Janet had her own secrets, her own reasons, and her own breaking point. But that day, standing in that hall with everyone laughing at me, I only knew one thing. I would never let anyone make me feel that small again. My name is Jimmy, and before that night, I was just another ordinary college student trying to make something of myself. I came from a middle-class family, nothing special, nothing terrible. My father worked at a manufacturing plant, and my mother was a school teacher. They taught me the value of hard work and honesty. And I carried those lessons with me every day. I was not the most popular guy on campus, not the richest, not the most handsome. But I was dependable, kind, and I genuinely cared about the people around me. That is probably why I fell so hard for Janet. She was everything I was not. Confident, beautiful, surrounded by friends and admirers wherever she went. She had this energy that lit up every room she entered. Her laugh was infectious. Her smile could make you forget whatever problem you were dealing with. She came from a wealthy family, the kind that vacationed in Europe and drove luxury cars. But despite all that, she never seemed snobbish or arrogant, at least not at first. We met during our second year. We were paired together for a group project in our business management class. I still remember the first time we really talked. It was late evening in the library, and everyone else in our group had left. She was struggling with the financial analysis section, and I offered to help. She looked at me with surprise, like she was not used to people offering help without expecting something in return. We spent 3 hours that night going through spreadsheets and calculations. She was smart, quick to understand once things were explained properly. When we finally finished, she smiled at me and said thank you in a way that made my heart skip. That was the beginning. After that project, we started talking more. She would find me in the library or the cafeteria, and we would chat about classes, life, dreams. I learned that despite her privileged background, she felt pressure from her family to be perfect. Her father was a successful businessman who expected her to take over the family company someday. Her mother was obsessed with social status and appearance. Janet told me she sometimes felt like she was living someone else's life. I listened, really listened, and I think that meant something to her. I fell in love slowly, then all at once. Every smile, every late-night conversation, every time she called me when she was stressed about exams. I started doing little things for her. Bringing her favorite coffee, helping her prepare for presentations, walking her back to her dorm when it was late. She never asked me to do these things, but I wanted to. I thought that is what you do when you care about someone. My friends noticed and started teasing me. They said I was wasting my time, that a girl like Janet would never seriously date a guy like me. I brushed them off. I believed that if you genuinely cared for someone and treated them right, that would matter more than money or status. I was naive. As months passed, I convinced myself that she felt the same way. She would text me when she was upset, call me when she needed advice, laugh at my jokes even when they were not funny. There were moments, small moments, where I thought I saw something more in her eyes. A lingering glance, a smile that seemed meant just for me. So I decided to take the risk. Our college farewell was approaching. A big formal event where everyone dressed up. and celebrated the end of our time together. I thought it would be the perfect moment. I saved money from my part-time job at a bookstore, skipping meals and cutting every unnecessary expense. I bought a simple ring, nothing extravagant. But it was real silver, and it was bought with honest money. I planned everything. I would wait until the evening was in full swing, walk up to her with flowers, and ask her to be my girlfriend in front of everyone. I thought it would be romantic, a moment she would remember forever. I told my roommate about my plan, and he looked at me with concern. He said I should talk to her privately first, feel things out, but I was confident. I believed in what we had. I believed in her. The night of the farewell arrived. The venue was decorated beautifully, lights strung everywhere, music playing, everyone dressed in their best clothes. I wore a suit I borrowed from my cousin, and I carried a bouquet of red roses. My heart was pounding as I searched the crowd for Janet. When I finally saw her, she looked stunning in a deep blue dress, her hair styled perfectly. She was laughing with her friends, Clara, and a few others from her social circle. I took a deep breath, gathered every ounce of courage I had, and walked toward her. People noticed and started whispering. Someone turned down the music. By the time I reached her, half the room was watching. I stood in front of her, holding out the flowers, my hands shaking slightly. I said her name, and she turned to look at me. For a split second, I saw something flash in her eyes. Was it surprise? Panic? I could not tell. Then she smiled, but it was not the warm smile I knew. It was cold, almost pitying. I started to speak, to tell her how I felt, but before I could finish, she laughed. That laugh cut through me like a knife. She took the microphone from the nearby stand, and in front of everyone, she said, I was sweet but completely delusional. She said we were just friends, that she never gave me any reason to think otherwise. She said someone like me should know my place. The room fell silent, then erupted in laughter. People pulled out their phones. I stood there, frozen, the flowers hanging limply in my hand. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor. Her friends were giggling, whispering to each other. Even people I considered friends were laughing. I looked into her eyes, one last time, searching for any sign of regret, any hint that she did not mean it. There was nothing. Just cold indifference. I turned and walked out, leaving the flowers on the floor behind me. The days following that night were the darkest of my life. I stopped going to classes. I could not face the stares, the whispers, the laughter that seemed to follow me everywhere. The video of my humiliation had spread across every social media platform. People I did not even know were commenting, sharing, making memes out of my pain. Some comments were cruel, calling me desperate and pathetic. Others were pitying, which somehow felt worse. My roommate tried to comfort me, but what could he say? There was no making this better. I had been humiliated in the worst possible way, and everyone knew about it. I spent hours lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment over and over in my mind. What had I missed? Were there signs that I ignored? Did she ever care about me at all, or was I just convenient, someone to help her when she needed it? The worst part was not the public rejection. It was the realization that the person I thought I knew, the person I had spent months caring for, did not exist. The Janet I loved was a fantasy I had created in my head. The real Janet was someone who could humiliate another human being without a second thought. After 3 days of hiding, I forced myself to get up. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. I looked defeated, broken. And I hated it. I hated feeling weak. I hated that I had given someone the power to destroy me like this. That is when I made my decision. I would not let this define me. I would not spend the rest of my life as the guy who got rejected. I would disappear from her world completely, and I would rebuild myself into someone she could never touch again. I started by cutting off every connection. I blocked Janet on every platform. I deleted our text conversations, every photo, every reminder of what I thought we had. I stopped going to places I knew she frequented. If I heard her voice in the hallway, I would turn and walk the other way. To everyone else, it looked like I was running away. But I was not running. I was removing her from my life like a surgeon removing a tumor. Then I focused on myself with an intensity I had never felt before. I threw myself into my studies, spending hours in the library, acing every exam, finishing assignments weeks before they were due. I picked up extra shifts at the bookstore, saving every penny I earned. I started working out, something I had never cared about before. Every morning I would wake up at 5, go for a run, then hit the small gym on campus. The physical pain was a welcome distraction from the emotional pain. Slowly, things started to change. My grades, which were always decent, became exceptional. Professors noticed and started recommending me for internships and research projects. My body, which had been average and unremarkable, started to build muscle and definition. People who used to ignore me started saying hello in the hallways. But I did not care about their attention. I was not doing this for them. I was doing this for me. What I did not know was that my disappearance was affecting Janet more than I could have imagined. At first, she did not notice. She was too busy enjoying her social life, her friends, her status. But as weeks passed, people started talking. They noticed that I was no longer around. They noticed that I had stopped trying to be part of her world. Some of her friends started to question what she had done. They asked why she had been so cruel, whether it was really necessary to humiliate me like that. Janet brushed them off at first, saying I would get over it, that it was not a big deal. But doubt started to creep in. She started to remember the things I used to do for her. The coffee I brought without being asked. The late nights I spent helping her with projects. The way I always listened when she needed to talk. She had taken all of that for granted, assuming it would always be there. Now it was gone. And she felt the absence. Then something unexpected happened. During a career seminar, one of the guest speakers mentioned my name. I had been selected for a prestigious internship at a major company, something only a handful of students from our university ever achieved. People started talking about me again, but this time it was different. They were not laughing. They were impressed. Janet heard about it from Clara, who mentioned it casually during lunch. She felt a strange twist in her chest, something she could not quite name. Was it regret, pride, jealousy? She found herself checking my social media, only to realize I had blocked her. She asked mutual friends about me, trying to sound casual, but they noticed. They started to wonder why she suddenly cared. One evening, she saw me from across the campus. I was walking with a group of people, laughing at something someone said. I looked different, confident, strong, happy, and I did not even glance in her direction. For the first time, Janet realized what she had lost. Not the version of me that used to follow her around, but the version of me that was becoming someone remarkable. And she had no way to reach me anymore. She tried to convince herself it did not matter. She had plenty of friends, plenty of attention. But late at night, when she was alone, she found herself thinking about me. She started to question her own actions. Had she been too cruel? Had she made a mistake? Her mother noticed her distraction and asked what was wrong. Janet brushed her off, but the question lingered. What was wrong? She had everything she thought she wanted. So why did she feel like something important was missing? Meanwhile, I continued to build my new life. I made new friends, people who respected me for who I was becoming. I dated briefly, nothing serious, just enough to remind myself that I was worthy of affection. But I never forgot what Janet did to me. I never forgot how small she made me feel. And deep down, a part of me wondered if she ever thought about me at all. I would soon find out that she thought about me more than I could have imagined. And that realization would change everything. The hardest part about moving on was not the anger or the hurt. It was the quiet moments when my mind would wander back to her, despite everything I did to stop it. I would be in the middle of studying, and suddenly a memory would surface. Her laugh when I said something stupid. The way she used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The warmth in her voice when she called me late at night because she could not sleep. Those memories felt like ghosts haunting me, reminding me of something that never really existed. I tried to push them away, to focus on my goals, but they would creep back in when I least expected it. Some nights I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, and wonder what I did wrong. Was I too eager, too available? Did I misread every kind word and smile? Or was she simply cruel, someone who enjoyed the attention I gave her but never intended to reciprocate? I hated that I still thought about her. I hated that, despite everything, a small part of me still cared. But I refused to reach out. I refused to give her the satisfaction of knowing she still affected me. My pride would not allow it. As months passed, I started hearing things through mutual acquaintances. Janet was asking about me, not directly, but in casual ways that people noticed. She would bring up my name in conversations, ask how I was doing, mention that we used to be close. Some people found it strange. Others thought she was feeling guilty. My friend, Marcus, who was in her social circle, pulled me aside one day and told me something that made my blood run cold. He said that Janet had been acting differently lately. She was more withdrawn, less involved in the party scene she used to love. Her friends were worried about her. And she kept asking about me. Marcus looked at me seriously and said, "Jimmy, I do not know what happened between you two, but she is clearly affected by your absence. I do not think she expected you to actually disappear." I laughed bitterly. "Good," I said. "Let her feel a fraction of what she made me feel." Marcus shook his head. "I am not saying you should forgive her or anything. but you should know that whatever you are doing, it is working. She is losing her mind over the fact that you have moved on. That conversation planted a seed in my mind. For the first time, I realized that my disappearance was not just about protecting myself. It had become something else. It had become a silent form of revenge. By cutting her out completely, by refusing to acknowledge her existence, I had hurt her in a way that public confrontation never could. I had shown her that she did not matter to me anymore. And for someone like Janet, who was used to being the center of attention, that was unbearable. But knowing that did not make me feel better. If anything, it made everything more complicated. Because despite my anger, despite my determination to move on, there was still a part of me that remembered the girl I fell in love with. The girl who stayed up late, talking to me about her dreams. The girl who cried on my shoulder when her parents fought. That girl felt real. Even if she turned out to be an illusion. I started to notice her around campus more often. At first I thought it was coincidence, but then I realized she was deliberately being in places she knew I would be. The library where I studied every afternoon. The coffee shop I went to before my morning classes. The campus gym during my usual workout time. She never approached me directly. She would just be there. In my line of sight, watching. It was unsettling. I did not know what she wanted, and I refused to ask. I kept my headphones on, my eyes forward, my interactions with her non-existent, but I could feel her gaze on me, and it made my skin crawl. One evening, as I was leaving the library, I found a note slipped into my backpack. I did not notice it until I got back to my dorm. It was written on expensive stationery, the kind Janet always used. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. The note said, "Jimmy, I know you do not want to talk to me. And I understand why. But I need you to know that I am sorry. I made a terrible mistake, and I have regretted it every single day since that night. Please, just give me a chance to explain. Janet." I stared at that note for a long time. Part of me wanted to crumple it up and throw it away. But another part, the part that still remembered loving her, hesitated. What if she really was sorry? What if there was more to that night than I understood? What if I was being too harsh? Then I remembered the laughter. The cruel smile. The way she made me feel like I was nothing. And I threw the note in the trash. The next day, she tried again. This time it was a text from a number I did not recognize. "Jimmy, please talk to me. I know I hurt you, but you do not know the whole story. There were reasons I did what I did. Please." I blocked the number. Then another text came from a different number. Then another. She was relentless. I blocked every single one without responding. If she thought I would break, she was wrong. I had spent too much time rebuilding myself to let her tear me down again. But her persistence started to wear on me. Not because I was tempted to respond, but because it reminded me that this was not over. She was not going to let this go quietly. And I started to wonder what would happen when she finally realized that I was never coming back. My friends noticed the change in my mood. I became more irritable, more withdrawn. I threw myself into work and study even harder, trying to drown out the noise in my head. But it was getting harder to ignore. Then, one night, Clara showed up at my dorm. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, looking both angry and concerned. "We need to talk," she said. I tried to close the door, but she pushed past me and walked into my room. She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Jimmy, what are you doing to her?" I blinked in surprise. "Excuse me?" "Janet," Clara said. "She is falling apart. She barely eats, she does not sleep, she is failing her classes. And it is all because of you." I felt a surge of anger. "Because of me?" I repeated. "I am not the one who humiliated her in front of hundreds of people. I am not the one who made her a laughingstock. She did that to me." Clara sighed. "I know. And what she did was wrong. But do you have any idea why she did it?" I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" Clara hesitated, then said, "Her parents. They found out you were planning to confess to her that night. Someone told them, probably one of her so-called friends. Her father threatened to cut her off completely if she did not reject you publicly. He wanted to humiliate you so badly that you would never come near her again." My heart stopped. "What?" "She did not want to do it," Clara continued. "She tried to find you before the party to warn you, to tell you not to go through with it, but you were already on stage before she could stop you. So she did what her father demanded, because she was terrified of losing everything." I stood there, frozen, as Clara's words sank in. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" I finally said. "She still did it. She still chose to destroy me to save herself." Clara looked at me sadly. "I am not asking you to forgive her, Jimmy. I am just telling you the truth. She made a terrible choice, and she knows that. But she is paying for it now. And whether you care or not, you should know that she never stopped thinking about you. After Clara left, I sat alone in my room, my mind racing. If what Clara said was true, then everything I thought I knew was wrong. Janet did not reject me because she did not care. She rejected me because she was trapped. But did that change anything? She still chose her comfort over my dignity. She still let me be humiliated. And she never tried to explain until now, after I had already moved on. I did not know what to feel anymore. Anger, confusion, sadness, all of it mixed together into something I could not untangle. One thing was clear though. Janet was breaking, and my absence was the cause. And I had to decide whether that was enough. Or whether I wanted something more. 3 days after Clara's visit, something happened that changed everything. I was walking across campus after finishing an evening class when I heard raised voices coming from the parking lot. I normally would have ignored it and kept walking, but I recognized one of the voices. It was Janet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I moved closer, staying in the shadows where I could see but not be seen. Janet was standing next to an expensive car, facing a tall man in a business suit. Even from a distance, I could tell he was her father. His posture was rigid. His expression cold and commanding. Janet looked small in comparison, her arms wrapped around herself defensively. Her father's voice was harsh and cutting. "I told you to stay away from that boy," he said. "And what do? You spend every waking moment obsessing over him. You are embarrassing yourself and this family." Janet's voice was quieter, but I could hear the desperation in it. "Father, please. You do not understand. I made a mistake. I hurt someone who cared about me, and I need to make it right." Her father laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Make it right? Do you think apologizing to some nobody is going to fix anything? You are my daughter. You have responsibilities, a reputation to uphold. That boy was never good enough for you, and he never will be." I felt my fists clench. Hearing him talk about me like that, like I was less than human, brought back all the anger I had tried to bury. But I stayed hidden, listening. Janet's voice grew stronger, more defiant. "You do not get to decide who is good enough for me. Jimmy was kind, hardworking, and genuine. He treated me better than anyone ever has. And I destroyed that because I was too afraid to stand up to you." Her father's expression darkened. "So this is about rebellion now. You want to throw away everything I have built for you because of some misguided sense of guilt. I will not allow it. You will stop this nonsense, or I will cut you off completely. No money, no support, no family. You will be on your own." Janet took a step back, tears streaming down her face. "Then do it," she said, her voice shaking. "Cut me off. I do not care anymore. I would rather have nothing than keep living like this, pretending to be someone I am not." Her father stared at her in shock, as if he could not believe she had just defied him. For a moment, I thought he might back down, might show some shred of compassion. But instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a checkbook, and scribbled something on it. He tore out the check and threw it at her feet. "There," he said coldly. "That is the last money you will ever see from me. I hope your precious integrity keeps you warm at night." He got into his car and drove away, leaving Janet standing there alone in the parking lot. She crumpled to the ground, sobbing, her entire body shaking. I stood there, frozen. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let her deal with the consequences of her choices. But another part of me, the part that still remembered who I used to be, could not leave her like that. Before I could make a decision, someone else appeared. Michael. I recognized him immediately. He was one of the wealthiest students on campus, someone who had always been in Janet's social circle. He drove a sports car, wore designer clothes, and had a reputation for getting whatever he wanted. He walked up to Janet and crouched down beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Hey," he said softly. "I saw what happened. Are you okay?" Janet looked up at him, her face streaked with tears. "Michael," she whispered. He helped her to her feet, his arm around her waist. "Come on," he said. "Let me take you somewhere quiet. You should not be alone right now." I watched as he led her to his car and drove away. Something about the scene did not sit right with me. Michael had never shown any interest in helping people before. He was the kind of guy who only did things if there was something in it for him. Over the next few days, I started noticing Michael and Janet together more often. He would walk her to class, buy her lunch, and she seemed to be relying on him more and more. People started talking, saying that Janet had finally moved on. That she and Michael were becoming a couple. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I told myself I did not care. That what Janet did was none of my business. But I could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then Marcus came to me with information that confirmed my suspicions. "Jimmy," he said, looking uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something about Michael." I looked up from my textbook. "What about him?" Marcus hesitated. "He has been bragging to people that he is going to make Janet fall for him. He says she is vulnerable right now, and it is the perfect time to swoop in. He even made a bet with some of his friends about how long it will take." I felt my blood run cold. "A bet?" Marcus nodded. "He does not actually care about her. He just sees her as a challenge, a trophy. And from what I have heard, he plans to use her and then dump her publicly, just like she did to you. He thinks it will be funny." I stood up, my mind racing. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus looked at me seriously. "Because despite everything, I know you still care about her. And she does not deserve what Michael is planning. Nobody does." I wanted to deny it, to say that I did not care what happened to Janet. But I could not. Because the truth was, even after everything, I did not want to see her get hurt like that. But if I intervened, if I warned her, it would mean breaking the silence I had maintained for months. It would mean acknowledging that she still mattered to me, and I did not know if I was ready to do that. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Marcus had told me. Janet was walking into a trap, and I was the only one who knew about it. I had a choice to make. I could stay silent, let her learn the hard way, and tell myself it was karma, or I could step in, warn her, and risk opening old wounds that had barely started to heal. By morning, I still had not decided, but as I walked across campus, I saw Janet sitting alone on a bench, staring at her phone with a sad expression. Michael was nowhere in sight. She looked lost, broken. Nothing like the confident girl I used to know. And in that moment, I realized something. This was not about revenge anymore. It was not about who hurt who or who deserved what. It was about the kind of person I wanted to be. I walked over to her, my heart pounding. When she looked up and saw me, her eyes went wide with shock. "Jimmy," she whispered. "We need to talk," I said. Janet stared at me like she had seen a ghost. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The noise of campus life continued around us, students walking past, laughing, talking, but it all felt distant, like we were in our own isolated bubble. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it again. Her hands were trembling. I could see the shock, the disbelief, and something else in her eyes. Hope maybe, or fear. Finally, she found her voice. "Jimmy, I cannot believe you are actually talking to me. I thought I would never hear your voice again." I sat down on the bench, beside her, keeping some distance between us. "I did not come here to reconcile," I said, my tone flat. "I came to warn you." Her face fell slightly, but she nodded. "About what?" "About Michael," I said. "He is not who you think he is." Janet frowned, confusion crossing her features. "What do you mean?" "Michael has been nothing but kind to me. He has been there when I had no one else." I felt a surge of frustration. "That is exactly what he wants you to think. He is playing you, Janet. He made a bet with his friends about how long it will take to make you fall for him. Once he gets what he wants, he is going to dump you publicly. He thinks it will be funny." The color drained from her face. "No," she whispered. "You are lying. Why would he do that?" "Because he is a narcissistic sociopath who sees people as toys," I said bluntly. "And right now, you are vulnerable. He knows that. He is taking advantage of your situation." Janet shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "Why should I believe you? You have ignored me for months. You blocked me everywhere. You act like I do not exist. And now you suddenly show up with this story." I looked at her directly, my expression serious. "You do not have to believe me. But ask yourself this. Why would I come here and tell you this if I did not have a reason? What do I gain from lying to you?" She stared at me, her lip trembling. "I do not know," she said quietly. "Maybe you want revenge. Maybe you want to hurt me the way I hurt you." I could have lied. I could have said that was not true. But I did not. "I have thought about revenge," I admitted. "There were nights I imagined you feeling even a fraction of the pain you caused me. But this is not that. I do not want to see you get used and thrown away by someone like Michael. Despite everything, you do not deserve that." A tear rolled down her cheek. "Why do you even care? After everything I did to you, why would you care what happens to me?" I looked away, unable to meet her eyes. "I do not know," I said honestly. "Maybe it is because I am an idiot who still remembers the person you used to be. Or maybe it is because I do not want to become the kind of person who stands by and watches someone get hurt when I could have stopped it." Janet was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Clara told you, did not she, about my father, about why I did what I did?" I nodded. She did. Janet let out a shaky breath. I know it does not excuse what I did. I know I should have stood up to him, should have refused. But I was terrified, Jimmy. My whole life, I have been controlled by my parents, told what to do, who to be. And that night, when my father found out you were going to confess to me, he threatened to disown me if I did not humiliate you in front of everyone. He said he wanted to make sure you would never come near me again. I turned to look at her. So you chose your comfort over my dignity. She flinched at my words. I know, she said, her voice breaking. I know, and I hate myself for it. I have hated myself every single day since then. I wanted to find you before the party. To warn you, to tell you not to do it. But you were already on stage by the time I got there, and my father was watching me. I panicked, and I did the worst thing I could have done. I destroyed you to save myself, and I will never forgive myself for that. I felt a tightness in my chest. Hearing her admit it, hearing the pain in her voice, it did not make the hurt go away. But it did make me understand. Do you know what the worst part was? I said quietly. It was not the humiliation. It was not the laughter or the videos. It was realizing that the person I loved, the person I thought I knew, never really existed. I built you up in my mind as someone kind, someone who cared. And in one moment, you shattered that illusion. Janet covered her face with her hands, sobbing. I am so sorry, Jimmy. I am so sorry. I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was okay. But it was not okay. What she did had nearly broken me, and no amount of apologies could erase that. After a few minutes, she wiped her eyes and looked at me. What do I do? She asked. About Michael, I mean. If what you are saying is true, what do I do? I thought for a moment. You need proof, I said. Confront him, but do it smart. Record the conversation. Get him to admit what he is doing, then you will know for sure. She nodded slowly. Will you help me? I hesitated. Janet, I do not know if I can do that. Being around you, it is complicated. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. Please. Jimmy. I have no one else. My father disowned me, my friends have abandoned me, and I have no idea who I can trust anymore. If what you are saying is true, then Michael is the only person I have left, and even he is lying to me. I am completely alone. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I knew what it felt like to be alone, to feel like the world had turned against you. I would not wish that on anyone, not even her. Fine, I said. But after this, we are done. I help you with this, and then we go our separate ways. Deal? She nodded, relief flooding her face. Deal. The next day, we set up a plan. Janet would invite Michael to a private location. A study room in the library that I knew had good acoustics. She would wear a small recording device that I borrowed from a friend in the journalism program. I would be nearby, listening in through an earpiece, ready to step in if things went wrong. When Michael arrived, he was all smiles and charm. He hugged Janet and asked how she was doing, playing the role of the caring friend perfectly. But I could hear the insincerity in his voice, the way he was a little too eager. A little too smooth. Janet started the conversation casually, talking about how grateful she was for his support. Then, carefully, she steered the conversation toward relationships. Michael, she said, can I ask you something? Sure, anything, he replied. Why are you really helping me? I mean, we were never that close before. What changed? There was a pause. I could almost hear Michael calculating his response. I have always thought you were special, Janet, he said smoothly. I just never had the chance to get to know you. But now, seeing you go through all this, I realized I want to be there for you. It sounded rehearsed, fake. Janet must have heard it too, because her next question was sharper. Is that all? You are not doing this because you see me as some kind of project. Or worse, some kind of game. Michael laughed, but it sounded forced. What are you talking about? Of course not. Janet pressed harder. Because I heard something, Michael. I heard that you made a bet with your friends. That you are only doing this to see how long it takes to make me fall for you. And then you are going to dump me. There was a long, tense silence. Then Michael's voice changed. It lost all its warmth, all its pretense. Who told you that? He said coldly. It does not matter who told me. Janet said, her voice steady despite the fear I knew she must be feeling. Is it true? Michael laughed again, but this time it was cruel. You really are pathetic, you know that. Yes, it is true. It was a bet. And honestly, it was almost too easy. You were so desperate for someone to care about you that you did not even question it. You practically threw yourself at me. I felt a surge of rage. I wanted to burst into that room and punch him. But I forced myself to stay still, to let Janet handle it. How could you? Janet said, her voice shaking. How could you do that to someone? Michael scoffed. Please. Do not act like you are some innocent victim. You did the exact same thing to that loser, Jimmy, did not you? You used him, led him on, and then crushed him in front of everyone. I was just giving you a taste of your own medicine. That was different, Janet said. I had reasons. Reasons. Michael laughed. Yeah, because you are a coward who does whatever daddy tells you. At least I own what I do. You are just a hypocrite. I heard a sound, like Janet standing up abruptly. Get out, she said, her voice filled with fury. Get out, and stay away from me. Michael's voice turned mocking. Oh, do not worry. I am done with you anyway. You were not even that fun. Good luck finding someone who actually wants to deal with your mess. I heard footsteps, a door slamming. Then silence. I got up and walked to the study room. Janet was sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, tears streaming down her face. But this time, there was something different in her expression. It was not just sadness. It was anger. Determination. I sat down across from her. You got it all? I asked. She nodded, holding up the recorder. Every word. Good, I said. Now you know who he really is. Janet looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a spark of the strength I knew she had buried inside her. Thank you, Jimmy, she said. For warning me. For helping me. You did not have to, but you did, I nodded. You are right. I did not have to, but I did. So now we are even. She wiped her tears and took a deep breath. What do I do now? I stood up. You expose him. You make sure everyone knows what kind of person he really is. And then you move on with your life. And us? She asked quietly. I looked down at her. There is no us, Janet. There never really was. But I hope you find a way to be the person you want to be, not the person your father tried to make you. And with that, I walked out, leaving her behind once again. The next day, the recording went viral. Janet did not just share it with a few people. She posted it everywhere. Social media, campus forums, even sent it to the university administration. Within hours, everyone knew what Michael had done. The reaction was swift and brutal. People who had once admired Michael turned on him. Comments flooded in, calling him a manipulative sociopath, a predator who targeted vulnerable people for entertainment. His friends, the ones who had made the bet with him, were exposed too. Screenshots of their group chat, where they had laughed about the whole thing, were leaked. Their reputations were destroyed overnight. The university launched an investigation. Michael was called in front of the disciplinary board. His father, a major donor to the school, tried to intervene, but the evidence was too damning. Michael was suspended for a semester, his scholarships revoked, and several companies that had offered him internships pulled their offers. His perfect future crumbled in a matter of days. But Janet was not done. She also came forward with her own story. She made a public post explaining what had happened the night I proposed to her. She admitted her mistake, took full responsibility for the pain she caused me, and explained the pressure she had been under from her family. She did not make excuses, but she gave context. The response was mixed. Some people sympathized with her, understanding that she had been trapped in an impossible situation. Others were less forgiving, saying that her reasons did not justify the cruelty of her actions. But one thing was clear. She was no longer hiding. She was no longer letting others control her narrative. As for me, I stayed out of it. I did not comment on any of the posts. I did not engage with the drama. I had said what I needed to say, and I was done. But people noticed. They noticed that I had been the one to warn Janet about Michael. They noticed that, despite everything, I had chosen to help her when I could have let her fall. My reputation, which had been damaged by the original humiliation, began to shift. People started seeing me differently. Not as the pathetic guy who got rejected, but as someone who had integrity, who had risen above his pain to do the right thing. I did not care much about their opinions, but I would be lying if I said it did not feel good to be seen as more than just a punchline. A few weeks later, I was sitting in the campus coffee shop, working on an assignment, when someone sat down across from me. It was Janet. I looked up, surprised. I thought we agreed, we were done. She smiled sadly. We did, but I needed to see you one more time. To say thank you properly, and to say goodbye. I set down my pen. Okay. Janet took a deep breath. I know you do not owe me anything. I know I destroyed whatever we had. But I need you to know that you changed my life, Jimmy. Not just by warning me about Michael, but by showing me what real kindness looks like. You did not have to help me. You could have let me get hurt, and no one would have blamed you, but you did not. And that taught me something. I stayed silent, letting her continue. It taught me that I want to be better, she said. I want to be the kind of person who stands up for what is right, even when it is hard. I spent so long being afraid, letting other people control me, that I forgot who I wanted to be. But you never forgot. Even after everything, you stayed true to yourself. I do not know if I will ever be as strong as you, but I am going to try. I felt a tightness in my chest. Janet, I said quietly, I am not some hero. I am just someone who got tired of being hurt and decided to do something about it. She shook her head. You are more than that. And I hope someday, you can forgive me, not for my sake, but for yours. Because holding on to that anger, it will only hurt you in the end. I looked at her for a long moment. Maybe someday, I said. But not today. She nodded, standing up. That is fair. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She placed it on the table in front of me. I am leaving, she said. I am transferring to another school, starting over somewhere new. I need to get away from all of this, from my parents, from everything. But before I go, I wanted to give you this. I looked at the envelope but did not open it. What is it? She smiled. Just read it when you are ready. Goodbye, Jimmy. And thank you, for everything. She turned and walked away. I watched her leave, and for the first time, I did not feel anger or resentment. I just felt closure. Later that night, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, written in her familiar handwriting. It read, Jimmy, I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even expect you to read this. But I needed to write it. For myself if nothing else. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too blind and too weak to see it. I let fear control me, and in doing so, I lost the one person who truly cared about me. I do not know if I will ever find someone like you again. Honestly, I do not think I deserve to. But I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to become someone who does. Someone who is brave, who stands up for what is right, who treats people with kindness and respect. I am going to become the person you thought I was. I hope you find happiness, Jimmy. I hope you find someone who deserves you, who sees your worth and never takes it for granted. And I hope that someday, when you think of me, it will not be with pain or anger, but with the knowledge that you made me a better person. Thank you for everything. Even if I did not deserve it. Goodbye. Janet. I set the letter down and stared out the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the campus. I thought about everything that had happened, all the pain, the anger, the growth. And I realized something. I had won. Not because I got revenge, not because Janet suffered, but because I had become the person I wanted to be. I had faced humiliation and pain, and instead of letting it destroy me, I used it to build something better. I had taken control of my life, my future, my happiness. And no one could take that away from me. As for Janet, I hope she meant what she said. I hoped she found a way to become the person she wanted to be. But that was her journey now, not mine. I had spent enough time living in the shadow of what we could have been. It was time to move forward. A few months later, I graduated with top honors. I received multiple job offers from prestigious companies. I built a life I was proud of, surrounded by people who respected and valued me. And every now and then, when I thought about that night at the farewell party, I did not feel pain. I felt gratitude. Because that moment, as terrible as it was, had set me on a path that led me to become the person I was meant to be. Janet had rejected me publicly. But in doing so, she had given me the greatest gift of all. The motivation to become someone who did not need her, or anyone else, to define my worth. And that, in the end, was the ultimate revenge.